Hey guys, quick little disclaimer, in addition to my usual bullshit, I'm recording my script in parts, so my audio is gonna be somehow even more consistent than usual. So if you guys care about your ears, just keep that in mind as the video's going forward. So yeah, without further ado, please enjoy the video. Bruh, I just fucking hit 500 subscribers, and all it took was me making an unfunny joke. But long before I hit 500 subs, I wrote down a list of potential video ideas, as well as ideas for milestone goals, assuming I would ever fucking get this far. So to say thank you for 500 subscribers, I am about to tread into white man territory and commit the biggest sin that any upcoming YouTuber could do, the video essay. But if I must tread into white man territory and make a video essay, I'm gonna do it on a topic that I am incredibly passionate about. And what better topic is there than DSiWare? If you search a WiiWare into YouTube, you'll get video after video after video of people reminiscing on WiiWare, their childhood memories with it, and how genuinely terrible or surprisingly great some of the games on it were. And every time I see a video on WiiWare, I just think to myself, why doesn't DSiWare get the same amount of attention? Sure, some YouTubers have talked about DSiWare before, but not as many people talk about it nowadays, which is truly a shame, as it was arguably the most underappreciated feature of the DSi, which itself is a very underappreciated system in my opinion. And because of that, as well as the 3DS eShop closing next year, making the vast amount of DSiWare titles no longer readily accessible to the average consumer, I want to take all of us on a journey through the many wonders and horrors of DSiWare. So without further ado, this is my Nintendo DSiWare Retrospective. To first understand the conception of the DSi Shop'n'Ware, we first need to understand the conception of the DSi itself. In late 2006, due to the ever so growing amount of sales for the original DS and DS Lite models respectively, as well as the hardware for the systems being outperformed by its competitor, the PlayStation Portable, Nintendo opted to make a new DS model fit with improved audio quality, volume control, to have a slim casing comparable to the DS Lite and that of the original model, and for the system to have eyes. Proposing that the system would come with a camera. During the early stages of production of the DSi, the late and great Satoru Iwata said that the microphone feature in the DS models acted as ears, which would make a fellow employee suggest that this new model would need eyes as well. But all of these features would come with a cost. See, up till this point, all DS models could have backwards compatibility with its predecessor, the Game Boy Advance, by having a slot for the cartridges on the bottom. But to improve portability without sacrificing the system's durability, as they would put it, the GBA slots were removed from the DSi models, which was disappointing to most fans at the time. Hell, the design of the DSi was changed midway through production, because while the GBA slot was scrapped for the system, Nintendo opted to have 2 DS cartridge slots for some reason. But then Nintendo EAD realized that idea was fucking stupid and scrapped it too. And after officially unveiling the system in October 2008 at a Nintendo press conference in Tokyo, the Nintendo DSi would end up releasing on November 1st, 2008 in Japan, April 2nd, 2009 in Australia and New Zealand, with the rest of Europe getting it a day later like the filthy bastards they are, and North America getting it on April 5th, 2009. I ended up getting the white DSi model later that Christmas, as it was the first video game system I ever personally owned. Sure, we had a Wii back then, as did everyone else did at the time, but that wasn't necessarily my system. So this old white brick is something I hold near and dear to my heart. I have so many fond memories with this little guy, playing Mario Party DS on road trips with my cousins, trolling my friends by letting them get first place in Mario Kart, only for a blue shell to hit them fucking 2 seconds later, 100%ing New Super Mario Brothers like a million times, and of course, going to the Nintendo DSi shop, even though I had no fucking DSi points. For those confused what I mean by points, the 7th generation of game consoles are notorious for having made up currency. For example, Nintendo offered points for the Wii and DSi shops, with 100 points equaling to about $1, and then Microsoft had the economic equivalent of the Imperial system. Actually, a funny childhood story, while on the topic of DSi points. So when I was about 9 or 10, one day my parents and I went to Babies R Us to get something. After we picked out what we were gonna get, we made our way over to the register. Now by the register there would be these racks, and on these racks would usually reside gift cards. More often than not, the cards on the racks would usually just be for the store in question that's holding the cards, but on them would usually have some oddballs on there. And on one of the racks I saw a card for DSiWare points, but since I was a dumb fucking kid with no money, I decided to steal the card.
Alright, put the DSiWare card in the bag!
but little did I know that the points on the card wouldn't be activated until it was scanned at the register. So I just sat there on my bed with a worthless piece of paper next to me, which just left me to window shop the DSi shop for the rest of its days. And yes, I am aware that Nintendo gave 1,000 free points to people who registered their DSi's from launch to March 2010, but kid me didn't know that at the time. It's not all bad though. I still had fond memories on the DSi shop, endlessly browsing through all the games, reading the information on them, jamming to the shop music, and I even ended up actually getting a game on there for free, which I will get to in due time. Needless to say that when it came to the DSi shop, I had a gay old time. But all good things must come to an end, eventually. The beginning of the end for the DSi shop could technically be traced all the way back to the launch of the 3DS back in 2011, but I like to consider it to be on May 20th, 2014, when Nintendo terminated Nintendo Wi-Fi connection, which was the online service Nintendo had for Wii and DSi systems that will allow players to connect to the internet to play online matches with others. Once the ability to play online was shut down, it was only a matter of time before the shops would be terminated as well, and we wouldn't have to wait long for it to happen, because less than 2 years later, on the most appropriate date ever to announce something like this, Nintendo said that in 2017, the DSi shop would be officially terminated. Later that year in September, Nintendo points became irredeemable, and on March 31st, 2017, the DSi shop was officially shut down after nearly a decade of being in service. Though as the old saying goes, you'll always be left in my heart. In this case, of the titles offered in the DSi shop, they continue to live not only in my heart, but on the 3DS eShop. Though many were upset that the DSi shop was terminated, many didn't fret as much for it being shut down compared to the Wii Shop channel, for example, because unlike the Wii Shop channel, the titles in the DSi shop were re-released to the DSi successor, the Nintendo 3DS. Now, I didn't mention this until now, but most DSiWare titles have been part of the 3DS eShop library since June of 2011, so now if you missed your chance to get DSiWare games on the original DSi shop like I did, you can now get it on the eShop, or you could emulate it like a Chad, but again, kid me didn't know that. But now, like the Wii and DSi shop before it, the Nintendo eShop for the Wii U and Nintendo 3DS are facing imminent doom, with it being scheduled to be terminated next March, leaving all the DSi titles to be wiped from existence. And now with the brief history of the Nintendo DSi and DSi shop out of the way, it's finally time for the moment you've all been waiting for. I have in my hand a 3DS filled with a shit ton of DSiWare titles, so now it's time to talk about DSiWare. Now, like with WiiWare, DSiWare was the home to a plethora of different kinds of software. We had original games, ports, miscellaneous, and even demos masquerading themselves as real games. Now, just as a quick disclaimer going forward, I obviously don't have all the DSi software that was available. I just bought all the games that interested me, so I apologize to all true fans of Snowboarding Extreme. So with that being said, we have a bunch of shit to go through, and what better game to start off with than starting off this journey, we have none other than WarioWare Snapped, which was the game that arguably intrigued me the most whenever I would browse the DSi shop. Now, I don't think I'm gonna ruffle any feathers when I say this, but the WarioWare series is pretty epic. I enjoyed every game of the series that I played so far. The original on GBA, the motion controlled induced chaos that is smooth moves, the fun as fuck newest installment that is Get Together, and even the Wii U one that no one bought. Regardless, the WarioWare series is great, and you think that this one will be great too, right? I wish, man. This game sucks massive dick. I think anyone who played this game can agree. One thing I adore about the WarioWare series is that it's open to a lot of experimentation, and this one isn't an exception. See, the main gimmick of this game is that you gotta control it with the DSi camera, taking pictures of yourself, and having the camera track your movement. That sounds like a very fun idea and concept, but the problem is that this game came out in 2008. As you can probably imagine, the DSi camera doesn't work all that well nowadays, making the vast majority of micro games unplayable. And if the camera did work properly, there's still only 5 minutes worth of content, with each character only having like 5 micro games, each of them being about 20 seconds or so, making all of them embarrassingly easy. That is when the camera works properly. See, the challenge in WarioWare is that since the micro games are only a few seconds long, in addition to needing a fast reaction time, you need to complete the task in such a short amount of time, especially when the games get faster and faster the more you play. Snap pisses all over this notion by having having only 20 microgames in the whole fucking game, and having each of them last 20 seconds. What a jip.
First off, the game was designed entirely for the Nintendo DSi, which was just a thinner DS with a built-in camera. Really, were we about to spend another few $100s for another DS that just had a camera? Come on, Nintendo.
This is the most obnoxious thing I've ever experienced in my life.
Now this is what I'm talking about. Now I'm gonna be 100% honest here and say that before this, I have never played a Bomberman game before. So I went into this one completely blind, and let me just say that this game is fucking great. It's nothing super in depth, but it doesn't have to be. Not every video game has to have story and gameplay mechanics as deep as Ocarina of Time. Sometimes I'm in a mood to just play a really fun arcade game, and Bomberman Blitz is that arcade game. The game invokes the same kind of happiness that a Namco arcade game would get out of me. It's just a very charming and simple puzzle game where you have to blow your enemies away using your arsenal of bombs and the different blocks around you. It's a very simple concept, but it has a really cool sense of strategy with it that makes every time I play it very engaging and, well, fun. You could either destroy everything in your wake, utilize the blocks around you to heighten your defense, or you could try to quarter your enemies using a path that you made yourself and then you fucking crush them. It utilizes both screens of the DS in a very fun way, and having both of them display the top and bottom portion of the board, having you and your enemies being able to utilize it. There's even online play here. We're already 2 games in and we already see how varied the quality of DSiWare games can be. Let's see what the next game we play is. Hell yeah, Frogger returns. Returns from where, you may ask?
Letting go. Nothing will stop me. Not even.
Who the hell cares? Frogger's fucking back, y'all. How does this game square up for Frogger's big, grandiose return? Game is just Frogger. I don't know, for a remake of a PlayStation 3 game, I was expecting a lot worse, but it's just Frogger. I don't really know what I was expecting, but maybe a bit more than just Frogger with a title as epic as Frogger Returns. I'll probably never play this game again, but it's somewhat of a comforting feeling to know that I now own a copy of Frogger Returns. We're finally starting to reach up there with the big boys. Up till this point, the games I've discussed were nothing but arcade-style fluff, regardless if they were good or not. But now we're playing a game with an actual narrative. Granted, it's not a very good one, but the narrative is still there. See, the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series suffers criticism from what I call Pokemon Syndrome, where each game in the series is practically the same with changes in overall innovation being at an absolute minimum. Does this game break the mold of that sentiment, or does it continue to be part of the mold? Well, I only played 2 games in the series, that being Mania Mayhem and the Amiibo one whose name I honestly forgot because it sucks. But yeah, I'm here to report that this is essentially the same basic puzzling gameplay we all know and are accustomed to. Now, that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. I mean, this is a puzzle series after all, but the real problem comes with the game's difficulty. This game is pathetically easy, like mind-numbingly easy, and this isn't a long game either. It's only about an hour and a half long at most, but my god, I don't care enough to finish it. The puzzles are so damn easy, I'm pretty sure a goddamn kindergartner could solve it. Like, I get a weird comfort out of stupid ass junk like this, but I'm not really excited to play this again because of how boring the campaign is. Except the bosses are good, even if they are easy too. But if you get bored of the main game levels, then fuck you, you can make your own. And like with everything else, I look back into a game like Mania Mayhem with fondness, as you get to make your own levels with a lot more options. You get to make the stage from scratch, not have the basis from a pre-existing stage, and a lot more puzzle gimmicks were in that game, so that made it a lot more fun. I don't know, for a DSiWare game, it's whatever, you get what you paid for, but it's just so lacking. So if you want a 4 out of 10 puzzle game for babies to entertain your fucking baby niece or nephew, there you go, you're welcome. Now you're probably thinking, what the fuck, man? I thought this video was supposed to be a positive outlook on DSi titles, but for the most part, you've been negative. Well, hey, in my defense, if you've played WarioWare Snapped, you would understand my pain. But if you want to see a good game, let me introduce you to Shantae's Risky Revenge. Now, like with Bomberman, I've never played a Shantae game before this one, and I didn't even know what the series was really about. Now, unlike most of the games available on the DSi shop, this is a legit full-fledged video game. time. Granted, it's only like 3 hours long, but it's still a great time filled with some of the most gorgeous pixel art and animations I've ever seen in a DS game. But this game kinda took me by surprise because it went in a direction I never would have expected. Now, when I first looked into this, I thought it was just another mascot platformer, and while I was technically right, the game itself kinda plays like a Metroidvania. And while I haven't played a ton of Metroidvanias, I'm familiar enough with the genre to know how insanely fun and satisfying it is to roam around a giant map to explore, all while coming across secrets and upgrades, as it really does show your progress from then and when you started playing, which is immensely satisfying. And thankfully, this game is no exception to that. Granted, it's a short-ass Metroidvania, but who the hell even cares? This game is a goddamn blast. The spells are fun to use, the different creatures you can transform into is fun, your basic arsenal attack is pretty fun, not to mention that the level design is superb, especially in the dungeons. Most of the time, in the dungeons, I would just be exploring, trying to search for all the different treasure chests I could find. This game is just pure fun, and thankfully, unlike the vast majority of DSiWare titles, WayForward realized that this game is too good to not have it restricted to a dead fucking service, and re-released the game as a director's cut version with its own Funky Kong mode. So if you want to get yourself a copy of the game, hell yeah dude, go for it. And speaking of WayForward, Mighty Flip Champs. Now this is a puzzle game I could get behind, not only because the music fucking slaps, but also because this game serves an actual challenge that requires strategic thinking. Not too many games take advantage of the DSi families and systems dual screens, but this absolutely does. Being a puzzle platformer, your moveset is strictly limited to moving around, to which I was pretty shocked to realize that this game doesn't have a jump button, but then I realized how the game makes up for it, and that's with the ability to change screens instantly with the press of any of the 4 face buttons. This is honestly pretty incredible since the switch between screens is quick and instantaneous, and that you could switch screens at any time you'd like, even when you're falling. Not only does that not interrupt the flow of the gameplay at all due to how fast it is, but it also resorts in having you think fast when switching screens, since it's pretty easy to die and start over, but it also encourages you to get the best time. And with the dual screens of the DSi, you can see the screen your character is currently on, and the screen that you will be switching to, so you could see where exactly you would want yourself to fall. And while that sounds simple in concept, the layout of the maps and objectives that the game gives you later on, especially with the special stages, offers you a pretty decent challenge. Honestly, WayForward went above and beyond when it came to putting out quality stuff on the DSi shop. Sure, none of these games were masterpieces, but they sure as hell cared about the shop more than Nintendo did. More on that later. But not only did this game receive a sequel in 2011, also on DSiWare, but like with Shantae, it wasn't restricted to being only a DSiWare title, as it was ported to the PS3 and PlayStation Minis? Ugh, sounds gross. This is probably the coolest fucking DSiWare title out there. Not my favorite, but the fucking coolest. And no, not just because of its unique presentation. This game is a sequel to X, which is an obscure title for the original Game Boy that was released only in Japan. X was basically a space shooter simulator type game where the player would play in a pseudo 3D environment trying to gun down their enemies. And if the gameplay of X looks familiar to you, it should, because the designer for X would later use this game as basis to design none other than Star Fox, which is a series I don't really like very much, but that's another video. Regardless of the quality of the game, it's pretty fucking awesome that they put respect on the game that inspired one of Nintendo's biggest and most beloved cult classic series. Now, with the novelty of Escape aside, how was the game itself? If it's a sequel to a game that's a precursor to Star Fox, I don't know what made me think I was gonna like it. I know, it pains me too, because I really wanted to like this, but the controls are atrocious, I'm sorry. I'm thankful that up to this point, none of the games I played so far had egregious forced touchscreen controls, but I knew in my heart that a game with those type of controls would come towards my way eventually, and you can see where I'm going with this. In Escape, you control your tank with the touchscreen, and you can either use the D-pad or face buttons to shoot. I don't like controlling the tank with the touchscreen. It's awkward, clunky, and not fun. It doesn't help the fact that you are also controlling the camera with the touchscreen, so more often than not, I'm gonna be aiming at a place I don't want to, due to the camera moving along with the tank I'm controlling, which makes the game feel more like a chore than anything. Well, I shouldn't say that necessarily. That's only half the story here. You see, missions in Escape are divided into 2 types, tunnel and planet. The missions that we're just speaking about were the planet missions, but how are the tunnel missions missions. Honestly, not too bad. Hell, I'd even say it's pretty goddamn fun. See, in Planet missions, you have complete control of your vehicle in an open-ended area, but in tunnel missions, vehicles move on its own in a linear space, with you only having to use the touchscreen to move a bit to the left, right, up, or down to avoid enemies and obstacles. Tunnel missions work way more with this control scheme than with Planet missions. Plus, accompanied with this game's unique presentation, the game is able to add a lot more interesting effects in the tunnel missions. But in Planet missions, I feel like I'm just playing a leftover Virtual Boy game, because most of the objectives in Planet missions require me to just look for something, whether that be a landmark or an enemy. But I don't know what the fuck I'm looking at half the time because everything looks the damn same. All in all, this game is the definition of a mixed bag. At best, it's some of the most fun I've had out of a DSiWare game thus far, and at worst, it fucking sucks. BlazBlue Super Melee Brawlers Battle Royale. Whoa. A 3D arena fighter spin-off of BlazBlue on DSiWare. What could possibly go wrong? In concept, everything I just said should sound like a fucking terrible idea for a video game, right? Well, it is. Now, just a heads up, I don't know jack shit about BlazBlue, so I went into this game not knowing anything about the series, and I still don't after playing this, because this game is probably the most generic button masher I've ever played. There are 3 modes, that being life, score, and flag, but they're all the same junk. Just mash the same 2 buttons to knock your opponents out of the arena. The different modes just try to simulate a different experience with having different objectives, but I just find myself doing the same thing in each and every mode, so why even bother? It doesn't help that the stages are all so visually uninteresting with the very simple art design and geometry, accompanied with the fact that it takes your character a ridiculously long time to recover from it, lasting from 5 to 10 whole seconds. I'm trying to come up with more to say here, but this game is just nothing. It made me feel nothing playing it other than boredom, and I felt like this game was just a huge waste of my time and probably the biggest $5 I've ever wasted. Now, if you've been paying attention to any of the games I've talked about so far, you may have noticed only a handful of them were developed and or published by Nintendo themselves. Why is that? Well, because Nintendo wanted to be fucking lazy and opted to sell kids demos for $5. Under the subtitle Express, or a little bit of in Europe, these games are just demos of games that are already available elsewhere. Now, why do this in the first place instead of just giving these demos for free, especially when the Wii received free demos on WiiWare around the same time? I'll tell you why. Money. Anyway, enough stalling. Let's jump into this horse shit with... God fucking damn it. You know what? I'm just gonna say it. I am not a fan of Dr. Mario. I know, I am lighting the world on fire today with my bad opinions. When it comes to puzzle games, I am personally more of a Tetris, Puyo Puyo, or Columns guy. I find them a lot more relaxing to play, while Dr. Mario invokes the same feeling of going to an actual doctor for me. Every time I play Dr. Mario, I feel like I'm gonna need a fucking aspirin to calm my anxiety-induced headache. Like, yeah, it's a very simple puzzle game in concept. Just match the same colored pills with the viruses. But goddammit, it's those stupid-ass 2-colored pills. Like, I'm probably too fucking stupid to play a game like Dr. Mario to know what to do with those things, but once those come down, I have no idea where the fuck to put them. That's when I force quit the game because I already know I fucked up. So take everything I said here with a pinch of salt, because overall, Dr. Mario Express is a pretty good game. I just suck at it. And keeping with the Express series, opening it up on my handy dandy 3DS here leads to... oh my god. So in order to play this game, I need to be holding the system horizontally then vertically, which is gross, but I'm probably judging the game too early. Is the game itself good enough to justify such a hideous way to play it? Yes. Yes, it is. The game itself is very simple even by puzzle game standards. It's just a match 3 in a row type game, but simple it may be, it's still pretty fun and satisfying to find all the different ways to match 3 blocks in a row. I don't really have much to say about this. it's just a fun and standard puzzle game. And the Express series didn't limit itself to just puzzle games, as Nintendo published not one, but 2 Brain Age games under the Express line, Arts and Letters and Math. I was originally planning to get Arts and Letters, but that didn't happen. And keep in mind, I've never played a Brain Age game before, so I was pretty excited to see what this series was about, but judging by this promotional video, I don't think I was missing much. In addition to Brain Age, Nintendo was also offering Clubhouse Express games, which were basically collections of digital card, board, and party games. And unlike literally every other game sold under the Express line, this was an actual deal. You would get about 5 games in any of the 3 Clubhouse Express titles released, with each being about $5, which equals up to $1 per game. That sounds like a great deal to me. To put this into perspective, both this and Dr. Mario Express cost $5, so comparing them to each other, which sounds more like a better deal? A collection of 5 well-known party games with the ability to play them all with 7 of your friends, or yet another Dr. Mario game where the only modes available are playing Dr. Mario and playing Dr. Mario against a computer, not even against your friends. Yeah, I already know the answer, Dr. Mario Express. A common criticism I see thrown around the DSi shop is that unlike the Wii Shop channel back in the day, the DSi shop never had a virtual console. It would have been the perfect opportunity to sell Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and GBA games with the slot being removed. Hell, you can even have Game Gear, Atari Lynx, Tiger Electronic Games.
Oh my god!
Okay, maybe not Tiger games, but still, what we got instead were Game & Watch games. The addition of Game & Watch games on DSiWare perplexes me so much, because not only were there already 2 Game & Watch collections for Club Nintendo members, but they sold to Game & Watch games individually instead of selling them all in a collection like how the Clubhouse Express games did. The only one I have on my 3DS is Donkey Kong Jr., and let me say, like Dr. Mario, I fucking suck at this. I can never grab this stupid ass key and always end up falling to my death. What a fucking loser I am. But that wasn't it in terms of legacy content on DSiWare. There was also Prehistoric Man and Earthworm Jim, to which the latter wasn't available on the 3DS eShop unfortunately. And as for the former, but there was one more retro title available that I was able to get my hands on, and that was the original Rayman. That's right guys, after 4 years, I'm finally gonna finish my Rayman playthrough. My biggest question when downloading this game was that according to Nintendo, the 3DS couldn't properly emulate SNES and Game Boy Advance games, yet the DSi was able to run what was originally proposed to be a fucking Atari Jaguar game just fine. And honestly, from the last time I played Rayman to now, this game looks cleaner on here than it did on iOS. Not only that, but there were cute little bonus features in this version that took advantage of the hardware of the DSi. Like for example, when you go up to the guy who takes pictures, it actually takes a picture of you. Plus, at the end of the day, the game is still Rayman. It's not one of my favorite platformers because this game can be a fucking pain in the ass most of the time, but it's still a pretty good game nonetheless. And that's just retro games. I haven't even gotten into the mobile ports. Of this came Plants vs. Zombies and the mobile version of the Oregon Trail. Now, like Earthworm Jim, the Oregon Trail wasn't on the eShop, but Plants vs. Zombie was, and you think that that would be the game I bought when talking about mobile DSiWare ports, right? Well, doing that make me smart, but I'm a fucking dumbass, so I bought Cut the Fucking Rope instead. Honestly, bringing a game like this to a handheld that has one of its major gimmicks be a touchscreen isn't a bad idea. I wish more smartphone games were ported to DSiWare to make up for the lack of virtual console. Angry Birds, Flappy Bird, hell, maybe even Temple Run could have been great to have on DSiWare, but we have such gems as Cut the Rope to show us what almost was. So I started up the game and fucking bullshit, it's the same format as Puzzle League, but at least I understand why it's this way. A smartphone game was made with a vertical aspect ratio in mind, and rather than reprogram the game from scratch to fit the DS screen, they just had you play the game with the system on its side. Playing the game itself, well, it's still the same B-tier puzzle game we all know, except there's one subtle flaw. The game doesn't run that well on the 3DS. Sometimes when I load up a level, the frame rate lowers a bit, making the intro of the game lag for a second or two, but that's really just a nitpick. This is still Cut the Rope, and it's still a pretty decent time killer, albeit with the feeling of regret for not buying Plants vs. Zombies instead. And as for games, that's about all the games I have on my 3DS. But, that's right, DSiWare had a bunch of applications back when Nintendo was desperately trying to turn the DS into an iPhone. Nintendo released a shit ton of these things, including clocks, calculators, and calendars, based on the Mario and Animal Crossing series. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't tell you what these apps were like, because the 3DS just has the best storage. But while I may not have the fancy Mario calendar, I do have something that's nowhere near as good, but it's still something. Behold, the app that captured the hearts and minds of a generation. Flipnote was an animation tool that people used to create something either really crude or something that they would use to pump out a genuine masterpiece. And because it was so simple to use and easy to understand, many current animators and YouTubers got their start using it to make their own animations, which are unironically amazing. And you could share your animations online via the Flipnote Hatena website, or at least when it was still up, and use it to inspire a lot more people to try their own hand at animation. The impact Flipnote had on so many people cannot and will not be understated, as it was and still is amazing.
But wait! There's more!
There's one more game I wanted to talk about. Remember earlier in the video when I said that I downloaded a game to my actual DSi for free? Yeah, it's time to talk about that. I saved the best game for last. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for... The Legend of Zelda 4 Swords Anniversary Edition, the only fucking DSiWare game I have on my actual DSi. I had no idea this game was a thing when it first came out. I was just browsing the shop one day and I saw this game under the free category and I was like, all my years of praying has finally paid off. And after all these years, I still love this game. I'm not ashamed to admit it, but this was the first Zelda game I ever beat, and let me tell you, I loved every second of it. Now, given that this is a Zelda game, it's practically a given that the stages, dungeons, and bosses are all well designed and fun, but where this game truly shines for me is with the addition of a second Link. While you can both play the game with another person, I stuck playing this game solo because take one look at me. Do I look like I have friends? The two Linky gameplay element greatly impacted the puzzles in my opinion, and it never felt intrusive. It could have been really easy to have you have one Link be on one far end of the map and have to make the other go to the other far end of the map, but no, you really have to have the Links be far from each other, and I can really appreciate that. It makes the gameplay loop have the right amount of strategic depth without having the main gimmick trample over what was already a very great game. Not only that, but this game arguably has the perfect length out of any game I've talked about thus far. It didn't feel too long or too short. It's roughly about 4 hours long, which is honestly fine for a Zelda game in my opinion. A Zelda game can be great, but when it goes on for too long because of stupid Force bullshit, it can really sour the experience.
Looking at you, Twilight Princess.
Hell, even Nintendo themselves knew how badass this game was, with them having the late and great Robin Williams and his daughter Zelda to appear in promos for the game. I can gush about this game for hours to the point where I think I might give this game its own video in the future, but let it be known that The Legend of Zelda 4 Swords was and still is the perfect DSiWare game, and definitely a game everyone watching this video should experience, as it's a pretty good introduction to Zelda in my opinion, and an even better closer for this video. But first, a quick rant. I'm gonna make this rant short and sweet, as I've already done a video on my problems with the Switch a few years back with my friend Sailor on his channel, so I'll link that down below so you can check him out. But goddamn, the Switch era sucks. That's not to say that the Switch doesn't have good games, not at all. I love Super Mario Odyssey, Luigi's Mansion, Three Houses, and Metroid Dread, just to name a few. But comparing the Switch eShop to the DSi shop, and my god, it fucking sucks. Sure, the Switch has more games available at a debatable higher quality than anything on the DSi shop, but the lack of background music and original bite-sized games it has makes it a lot more boring. Hell, even comparing the Switch eShop to the Wii U eShop isn't doing it any favors either. The Wii U eShop was organized in a way that was a lot more fun, with specific games receiving its own headline, while the Switch eShop has like 5 categories listed under a fucking Times New Roman font. Like, you know the Switch sucks when it doesn't even have its own version of Dr. Mario. The Wii, Wii U, DSi, and 3DS all had their own version of Dr. Mario, so where the hell is the Switch version? You know, talking about Dr. Mario made me forget about what the point of all this was. Oh yeah, I remember now. The Switch is fucking boring. It doesn't have its own unique flair or fun touches to it like other Nintendo systems did. It's just blech. Like, sure, you can rag on DSiWare all you want, how most of their games were nothing but high score based arcade fluff that are only fun for 5 minutes, the over-abundance of puzzle games, how lacking Nintendo's output was, was, with the majority of the games they published being demos of games available elsewhere and the existence of Need for Speed Nitro X, but DSiWare was a lot more fun looking back on it. It was more fun, interesting, and exciting, and had more personality than that piece of shit could ever hope to have. I know DSiWare was lacking in a lot of places and hasn't been in the public consciousness since like 2009, but while lacking it may have been, I don't mean to end this video on a negative note towards the Switch, but more to show you the lighter side of DSiWare amongst all the mediocrity. DSiWare isn't talked as much as it should be, because it truly was such a great and underappreciated service, which is exactly why I made this video. Whether or not I swayed your perception of DSiWare on it being good or mediocre is all up to your personal preference, but I hope I accomplished one thing, and that's to at least have you appreciate the existence of DSiWare, because I don't think we're ever getting another service like DSiWare and WiiWare ever again. But yeah, I really hope you enjoyed the video, as I put a lot of time and effort into this, as it's probably the most ambitious thing I've ever done on this channel, and I'll continue to do more videos like this in the future. So yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.